Hello, I'm Robin and welcome to Molten Music Technology and what is going to be a pondering historical recap of the very first synthesizer that I had or that I used. And that's a bit more complicated than that 'cause it's kind of two synthesizers and then it's sort of two synthesizers and a bit of a sampler, but we'll come on to that. I was invited by a YouTuber called Matt Wright to do a little video on my first synth. And that inspired me to get my mum and dad round and to ask them about it. Because ultimately, my first synthesizers came from them. And so we sat down, had a cup of coffee, and I set up my little weirdo 360 camera and we chatted about it. And it was fascinating. Fascinating. But very long. And Matt, for his YouTube channel, wanted just like 7 minutes of me talking about the synth. And so I felt it would be good to put it all out there, because in some ways it's an archive, it's a historical event, it's recapping, it's anthropological, it's anthropomorphic, it's the recording of events of the past, of history, of memory. It's an oral tradition, if you like, keeping hold of that, just to document exactly where it was that my interest in electronic music, my interest in synthesizers originated. So I felt that it was important to let it all out. Let it all out. So this is the extended version of a little video on my first synth, which is interspersed with the bits I did for Matt's video, along with this archive footage, old recordings, and me just bumbling on like I do. Hi, I'm Robin from Molten Modular, and thanks to Matt for inviting me onto this little show to talk about my very first synthesizer. Now, to talk about my first synthesizer, you've kind of got to talk about two synthesizers, or at least a keyboard slash organ slash automatic keyboard slash synthesizer, and then a synthesizer. They didn't exactly appear together, but they're very much rolled up into what I was doing at the time, and I find it very difficult to separate them. So I thought, sod it, let's go with both. But we'll start off with the fantastic Technics SX K200. Now this is probably what you could call your home automatic player keyboard. It had rhythms and automatic accompaniment. It had polyphonic and monophonic sounds. It had built-in speakers and a music stand. It had everything that you could possibly want and need to learn to play with those kinds of organ-y sounds at home. Now the funny thing about this, and the next synthesizer for that matter, is that I had nothing to do with it. It just turned up one day. My dad came home with it, and I thought, heck, I don't really know why. I don't know why we had this thing. What on earth possessed the man to go and get one? So I thought I'd ask him. So sometime in the dim distant past, you came home, or rather I came home from school, and found in our little office this keyboard. It was a Technics KN SX200.
Right.
Which is this fella here. Which...
SXKN200.
There we go.
I'm
So
quite
we can
keen to
skip
show you
to
the
some
features as well.
one. Yeah, okay.
skip to some sounds.
But that had inbuilt rhythms as well, didn't it?
Yeah. Hopefully he'll show you some of those. No, he's still going on. Here we go. Yeah, all that sort of thing. All one finger chords and automatic accompaniment.
Yeah.
So this would have been 84, 85, would it? Do you remember? I mean, do you remember purchasing this thing, and what made you do so?
Well, I knew that you'd got a musical flair, and that you were interested in playing the piano. So I thought it would be quite good fun if we could play this stuff together, or maybe play together. So yeah, that's why I thought that we'd get one, so that we could accompany each other, and you could learn a bit of music on it while I was playing the piano.
Oh, well, see, that's interesting. That at the time, I don't think that had ever occurred to me. That there was, that there was that kind of intention behind it. It just seemed to be a thing that was there, that you'd brought home, which, I mean, it immediately ignited my imagination, I think. So I was very bored with playing the piano. I couldn't get on with the lessons and having to learn the scales, and these lovely but terrible old piano teachers with their weird shaped glasses and funny smelling homes that I had to go around and play.
Gil, wasn't it?
Gil Gardner.
Gil Gardner, sort of.
No, I don't think I ever had lessons from him. I don't think so. There was an old lady in Swaffham, down the back of Theatre Street.
Oh, that's right. There was too. Yes. Yeah.
Because I think you were anxious that Rob kept an interest in playing, because you were the only one of the three who showed any interest, really.
Yeah.
And you kind of wanted to encourage that.
Now, I mean, it's interesting because as a father now myself, constantly trying to find ways to encourage the kids to play musical instruments. That, because they dabble and then they seem to fall away, and it's like, okay, what can you do to keep that alive? Yeah. And of course, I mean, that may well have been the same experience for you, but I just was not consciously aware of it, if you know what I mean. It was just a thing to play on, and it was brilliant, and it did exactly what you had hoped.
And I also thought that it would be quite good fun to have an accompaniment to play to.
Yeah.
In itself, anyway, it would be quite good fun to have a rhythm and drums and stuff all built in.
Yeah.
Which was a new thing in those days. It was sort of quite an innovation.
So was it sold to you by Lynn Music? Where did you get pounced upon in the shop and persuaded into it, or was it something you sought out?
I think it came from Norwich, from the Cooks.
From Cooks, right?
Piano place, as it was then. Excuse me. I think we went and heard some and listened to it. Well, me and Mum, I don't know if I went on my own. I can't remember.
I remember going, but...
Yeah. And we thought, well, that's ideal. That's lovely, something like that. And then, of course, once we started playing it, then it sort of opened up a whole new aspect of rhythm and music and stuff, and that's where I got a lot of my interest in rhythmic music and stuff, and instrumental stuff from playing something like that.
Yeah. Well, we had sort of a fabulous music book that was designed for it, because it had all, the functionality, the auto accompaniment stuff, you could do either fingered or one finger, and this was brilliant for me because I had difficulty with my left hand playing the piano, and what it did, it enabled me to play one finger to play an entire accompaniment. One finger chords, which are either playing triads or playing the accompaniment, which was brilliant. And I had this songbook that just had the chord symbols, the notes that you press, the one note, and the melody line. So I was playing like Spanish Eyes and terrible old crooner type songs. There was nothing cool about it at any point, I have to say, but it introduced me to the idea of reading the music and playing the melody, and then building up chord shapes, I think, with my other hand, which has become very important later on.
Because another reason as well was, in those days we had a good congregation we had some good congregations at church where I used to play, and I thought it'd be quite a nice idea to have some lively music to accompany some of the hymns, which we did, didn't we, from time to time, and that was good. And that's when we also acquired that huge Carlsberg speaker.
Yes, yeah,
great heavy thing.
It is enormous. That was great. That was. I mean, that's got multiple channels. We've used it for all sorts of things. I've run terrible things through it over the years, and it survived. Which better than, unfortunately, the one I think that you got with this, which I think I did blow that with guitar later on. There was a smaller black Technics one, but that Carlsberg one has stood the test of time, without a doubt. But this actually isn't a synthesizer, so it's a what you would call a home keyboard or a player keyboard, which has got automatic accompaniment, a bunch of preset sounds, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, very basic.
Yeah, but it was nice, and I used it a lot in stuff that I was recording to and making music on at the time. So yeah, fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I mean, I loved this thing. I absolutely loved it to death. I played it all the time. I learned all sorts of songs on it, and I soaked that up. Absolutely soaked it up. Now, it didn't have a mass of sounds or anything, but what I really sort of lent into was it had this particular brass sound. Now, the brass sound by itself was quite horrid. It was quite stark and stabby. Whereas when you turned on the chorus, it suddenly turned into this quite gorgeous pad, which I used all the time. I constantly used it. And that, combined with the automatic accompaniment at the bottom that you could change around, it would actually change what you were playing here too. So it would affect both sides. You could then tie on a solo instrument, a monophonic instrument at the top, and play that like as the lead. So you could have paddy chords and a lead going on. Beautiful it was. The rhythm section was quite extraordinary. Well, no, it wasn't really, but I mean, at the time it was quite extraordinary, and it was actually sample based. It was PCM based. So the drums were relatively realistic as far as these things go at this time. And it was interesting in that you could program chords in and program chord sequences as songs, and it would play the whole thing back, and you could play along the top on a single hand. And then you could actually record all of it, or store it rather, to a strange little cartridge thing that sat in the top. Very odd. Very, very odd. But what I found myself using it for was this bedrock of pads, and then a little lead sound over the top. But then something else happened. And that was the arrival, again, in a similar way. My dad turned up with a DX100. So the first actual synthesizer was this, the DX100. And again, it was one of these things where I came home from school and you'd bought a DX100. And it's like, so why? What happened? I mean, what made that happen? I mean, I was fascinated by Yamaha synths at the time. I was reading up about DX7s and all this stuff, all the bands and the music at the time that I was into. So this was a couple of years later. So I was, mid-teens. So I was a bit more interested in popular culture, and FM synthesis through the DX Yamaha synthesizers was a massive phenomenon at the time. And you came home with a DX100.
I think that was just an upgrade, having had the first one and being interested in how it performed and what you could perform on it. And then
but was it shown to you at a shop? Did you go into a music shop and they go and ask, is there something I could get to accompany this? And they showed it to you, or?
That must have been how it happened, because in those days there was no such thing as internet and looking at stuff on screen before you buy or anything like that. You had to actually go into the shop and see what it said. see how it performed. And that was obviously a lot more advanced and a lot more, what should I say? It was more not composed, but concentrated. It was more compact.
Yeah.
It got a lot more sounds and a lot more rhythms in the same sort of space. Obviously, you've got to have the length of the octaves to be able to have the span of music.
Yeah.
And that's what sort of restricts the size of it, doesn't it?
Well, funnily enough, I mean, it sat perfectly on the Technics. It was exactly the right size, depth and everything to sit where, I mean, you take the music stand off the Technics had a wire music stand. If you take that off, the DX100 would sit on that space completely securely, and I would play them together like some kind of organist.
Cool, gracious. I don't remember that at all.
It was a long while ago.
Yeah.
Well, even so.
I mean, I ran off with it when I left home and stuff. I took it with me.
But I think Jamie's got it now.
No, I sold it for drugs, I think, many years later.
Did you?
Well, for something or other, for food, for
well,
cheese.
He's got one that I had.
Has he?
That must be the old original one then.
What, the Technics, you think? Oh, maybe. Fascinating. No, sadly, I had some very hard times when I had to let all sorts of things go. Sadly. So yeah, no, that's no longer about. But yeah, there was different sounds. I mean, those mini keys were a bit of a shock, coming from larger keys.
Yeah.
But it had all those bell sounds, electric piano sounds.
Yeah, I remember that bit, the
vibrato.
Yeah, I remember that. There was a knob on the side which you could turn up. Yeah, I remember that bit. But I don't think I personally used it to its full potential. Obviously because at the time when we had the music in the church, there was loads of young people out.
Yeah.
And it was, it was used then, wasn't it? We used it then quite a lot.
Yeah.
I've even got notes in some of the music as to what numbers to set for the pieces.
Yeah.
Like rhythm number 6 and then drums number 7 and 8 and last verse blah blah blah.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite ambitious in some ways. Well, certainly from the point of view of a congregation trying to follow along to these newfangled things.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think my memory of it the most is when playing in church is that you would play piano. We'd have Stan on guitar.
Yeah.
There was this old boy on who couldn't read music, but he just played along on guitar because he played in dance bands all his life.
Yeah.
And then I had the Technics and the DX set up, and I would play along.
Yeah.
Mostly chords and a lead bit.
Yeah.
And
5 seconds to self-destruct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then play as I say, usually a pan flute. I think play a lot of pan flute bits on.
Yeah, that was nice because that would lead.
Yeah.
You could lead with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish we had some film of that now.
Oh my goodness, that would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
God, I wish I could remember more about it.
Well, it's funny because it's sort of ordinary at the time, if you think about it at all. And then, but now thinking about it, it wasn't. It was actually extraordinary.
It was because it was the first time that we were able to play two instruments at once, if you understand.
Yeah.
You know, you could play one, I could play the other, or whatever, and one would have an accompaniment, and one would have stuff.
And it was unusual that it was keyboard based. I mean, plenty of churches would pick up guitars, you know, and you would have a guitar and piano, or just guitar. I think most people go to in the end. So it's odd. We had this kind of electronic little electro worship band.
Well, possibly because you weren't into playing a guitar at that time. I mean, he's into ukulele now, of course, but back then it was only a keyboard affair that he could manage. So,
I mean, it's interesting how the DX100, or the form of synthesizer that is renowned now as being hideously complicated, because you this is like was a new idea, or it's digital synthesis, whereas before that everything was covered in knobs. Everything was analog and had knobs that you could move in order to change the tones and the sound. But on this thing, you had to go through. I mean, every button on here had at least 3 different functions, or 3 different levels to it, that you pressed a button to get to that bit and press a button. Then you had a data slider where you moved and changed a value. So you'd have to do everything one at a time, going through, changing a value, how does that sound? How does that sound?
Yeah.
So, I mean, but I would spend hours with it, going through and trying to create my own sounds or my other bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because I was into FM synthesis. It was just because it was there and it was what we had, and so that's what you used. I had no idea that it was supposed to be complicated, because I just thought this is how synthesizers were. You know, very simply.
At the time, quite honestly.
Yeah. But cutting edge, I think. So the recording we've got of us playing together, I mean, trying to judge by my haircut,
Yes.
it would have been 80, 85, 86 maybe. And of course, as my dad suggested, we did play together. We played a lot together in church. He would play piano, I would play the keyboard and the DX100, and we would play along, and the congregation would sing, and that was a Sunday morning. You know, I did that for years. It was very exciting. And as luck would have it, bizarrely, we have a little bit of a clip of that, of me and Dad practicing at home. Now, before you pass judgment, this was a very, very long time ago.
Trevor and Globs enjoying their hobby on Saturday morning, practicing for Christmas. The Bible tells us we should be music makers. Praise the Lord in songs and hymns and spiritual songs. Very talented family, these Bensons. so a happy Christmas to you all.
Now, I did, of course, write my own songs. I got straight into recording, and I did that all on a double tape deck. To start with, it was my dad's hi-fi double tape deck. So you put it in tape, press record, you would play through something. Then you take that out, put that in the other deck, put another tape in, press play on that, play and record on that one, play another bit and load that in over the top. And you would overdub and overdub until you had no idea what it was you started off by playing. And all of it had fuzzed and faded into the background noise of wonderful cassette-ness. Yeah. And then, unfortunately, I broke his hi-fi. And you can hear it in some of my recordings. It's just going haywire. And so I borrowed this other big speaker, which had this double tape deck in it. Now, the downside of the replacement was that it had automatic recording levels, whereas the original had a recording level I could set. And so you could have some kind of control over how the overdubbing went. Whereas with the one with automatic recording, you would just go from sort of like silence and then lots of noise, and then it would crunch down as more sound came in, and it's constantly throbbing about the place trying to get a handle on the levels, which didn't really do it any good. But funnily enough, I have some of those ancient recordings from the mid to late 80s. I'll play you a quick snapshot. Now, this is the first song I ever recorded, I think. It's called Washed Out to Sea, and it used that ocean seashore preset on the DX100 as the intro. But as I say, overdubbed. I had to play that for like 3 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes, and then rewind the tape, do it over again with the next sound. So you have to get the idea of how laborious and weird it is to do it in that way. So you can hear that come in. Just about hold it together, the integrity of it. And then that rumba drum beat from the Technics with the fill. What you can hear there is the chorus brass in the background, with I think the trumpet solo at the top, if I remember right. Bass, DX100, and this folk guitar preset, DX100. That fill. Extraordinary. I'll skip on a bit. I think it's about the same all the way through. Then the C comes in at the end. Beautiful, hey? This one was supposed to be in a Mike Oldfield style. So it sort of built up layers. Ooh, that automatic stuff. This was much more DX100 heavy. There were some of my own patches in this, some of the sounds I wrote myself for this one. Particularly something I called feedback, which was this kind of chord that then gave this one. That. Just brilliant. nothing was sequenced. I had to play it all live. And that was that great preset called feedback guitar or something. Lead guitar, can't quite remember. Anyway, that's enough of that one. One point though is that the drums from that track were actually samples, and they came from the Commodore 64 sound sampler that I got one Christmas. And just to demonstrate the whole lot of that coming together, I did a track here with a sample from James Brown. That automatic recording level doing me in every time. So I'm back now to the Technics drums. This is the rock pop drum, I think, which has a nice fill that's coming in a minute. There you go. Bass, I really like the bass. But what's important on this is the sample, so I'll skip on. In a minute. There we go. As I say, one take, overdub after overdub, played live, ain't no sequencing. Just brilliant. I can't believe I still have those recordings. But heck, so there we go. Technics SXK200. It really set me on the road to being excited about electronic music, to be excited about the sort of sounds that you could generate and the ability to record, even if it was just overdubbing, to record, and the potential to release your own music. You know, that seemed extraordinary. Absolutely, absolutely amazing. It's been such fun thinking about this. It really has. So thanks, Matthew, for inviting me to do so and to spend a little bit of time just considering these origins. I mean, from there, funnily enough, I kind of left home. I took the DX100 with me and bought a guitar and dove straight into rock music for a very long time. But I'm back now. I'm back now into the synthesizer world, and it's and it feels good. And so the one you went for after that, where I was still around, which I think was the Roland E20. I'll find the right one.
What was that?
What I'm surprised about is that you didn't take Rob with you when you went to buy these things. In a way, because Rob's saying he would turn up from school and there was a new.
Yeah, there was a thing.
Because it wasn't any good taking me in the same way, whereas Rob could have enjoyed it.
Yeah, the Roland E20. There you go. So at some point, I came home from being away, I imagine. Oh no, I mean, I remember writing a particular song for a girlfriend on this one, and so it must have been 88.
Okay.
89, possibly.
Yeah. How lovely.
So yeah, at some point you came home with this, which is similar to the Technics in that it's got all these rhythms inside, but of course much more advanced. It's come on quite a bit since the Technics one.
But it would only play about 5 different sounds.
Right.
It was sort of like harpsichord, church organ.
Well, the Technics, yeah,
choir.
That had like a dozen, didn't it? Whereas this that had all these sounds in it. Had a lot more. But it was a very similar idea.
Are you sure?
I am sure.
I don't remember that at all.
You know, I don't remember this keyboard.
No, I don't.
I don't think I've robbed you of that one. I don't think I sold that one on.
Well, funnily enough, that one to me from here looks more like I remember it.
Does
Yeah.
it?
But
Is it? Okay.
I do remember that look.
Yeah.
See, I mean, I used this in that gig that I did in the church,
Yeah.
which was 87. No, was I 18? No, yes.
Oh,
yes, I'd
okay.
failed my A-levels. It was after my A-levels.
Oh,
So that was 89,
right.
I think.
Right.
So anyway, so I did this big gig in the church where I used this because this had MIDI, and I was running it all from a MIDI sequencer on the Commodore 64.
Oh, yes.
So I had the computer set up next to it, the Commodore computer set up next to it, running all of the songs through this, and played guitar alongside with Nick playing the drums.
Oh.
Yeah. I think I do remember it now.
Yeah.
I remember
It's all
because of all
programmed.
these.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
Various
I remember the
things along the
chunkiness
top.
of it, if you see what I mean.
yeah.
A bit more complicated than the other ones.
Gracious
I wonder
me.
how much they cost.
I don't know how much they cost at the time.
What's the one I've got now then?
Oh, no.
Say, that's the one that you got from London when you worked in
In Turnkey,
Turnkey.
see, I don't remember that.
This is hopeless.
You got it for me trade.
Yeah, no, probably, yeah.
But it's only, well, it's fairly basic, as I say. It's only got about half a dozen different noises on it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got a facility for repeat, so you can play your music and it'll record it.
Right.
It's got about 100 and odd piano songs in it.
Okay. It's more of an electric piano though, isn't it?
Oh,
More of
yeah,
a home
yeah.
piano
Yeah,
rather than
yeah.
an automatic thing with lots of bells and whistles.
No, not that much.
Yeah.
Not that much. It's got a reverb on it, and it's fair. But yeah, you have to have a look
Sounds
next time
alright,
you
yeah.
come.
Mm.
We can sort this out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess the last question is when they got rid of the organ, the pipe organ at church, who made the decision on what to replace it with? Do you remember?
I don't remember who made the decision. It was probably a PCC decision, but Sheila Jones and Tom Jones bought the organ that we've got at the moment,
Right.
and they donated it to the church to replace it because we used a piano for a time, and then Mum used to play that. Always used to play the organ as well, and but then I used to play the piano with Phoebe,
That's right.
playing
Yeah.
the organ.
You do.
Yeah,
But so you now got like a two keyboard
yeah.
fake electric organ, isn't it? Well, it's,
Two
it's an
maybe.
electric organ with the foot pedals and everything. You know, it's
Yeah,
quite a
yeah,
chunky
yeah.
thing.
It's got all the things.
It's
all
not
the
a.
works.
It's not pretending.
No.
With all the registers and
Yeah,
buttons
yeah,
and switches
yeah,
on it.
yeah.
But it also has MIDI, I remember. So at one time, I would use it to play the Roland via, rather than try to have the two keyboards next to each other, you could play it all on the organ, which is quite extraordinary.
Mm.
But I don't think we did that very much. But I think I got it to work. It just ends up being too complicated. All
Yeah.
the sounds coming out of different places.
Yes, that's right. Nobody
It's
knows
too
which note
much.
to go by.
Yeah. But anyway, so there it is. The DX100 was my first synthesizer.
So on that video, is that what you're actually playing then?
Yeah.
So yeah, so in the video I should have the Technics with the DX100 sat on top
Okay.
and playing chords down here somehow and lead on top and down on piano, tinkling away
Yes.
was how it was.
Yeah.
And I have played it around my neck on a guitar strap because it has these guitar strap
Oh, right,
studs
okay.
on the side, though not very successfully I don't think, but I have done that.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Cool.
yeah,
Oh.
it was quite a thing.
What it is to have a memory.
It
Yeah.
is true. Well, you see, we've got longer
Specific
years
things.
to remember in,
Yeah.
and it meant something to Rob at the time, which was good.
Yeah, I
Actually.
mean, it totally as I say, sparked creativity and imagination and potential, and and now many years later, after lots of strange turns, I make my living talking and writing about synthesizers.
That's quite.
How funny is
amazing.
That? And you could even trace that back to albums that you had. You had Vangelis albums.
Oh yeah.
Sky. Bands like that. Alongside Van Dunigan and some terrible things.
Neil Diamond.
But then you have a remarkably eclectic taste in electronic music, which was quite weird. I remember talking about this when I was working at Turnkey, and the internet, of course, and Spotify, Napster, all these sorts of things. You're a long time Napster user, and was dragging in all this weird electronic music, which was perfect because the 90s was full of instrumental electronic music.
That's right.
And so that's always been an interesting thing. But it came from that China album, that Vangelis China album you had. I remember being totally blown away by some of the sounds on there and wanting to recreate them. Find how you recreate them. That in particular, Sky 2, which I don't think that was very synthy, but it was very instrumental.
Still do.
Yeah.
Still do.
And then Jean-Michel Jarre and all of that kind of stuff.
But there's no end nowadays. Because once you click on one particular style or artist, then it comes up with everybody else that's similar. Yeah. You might like this and you might like that and all this sort of stuff.
You go on
play
that.
And it's lovely. I love it.
But I think I have your Kraftwerk album. But it was, funnily enough, it's their pre-synth album.
Oh, yeah.
When they're a bit more like Jethro Tull.
Yeah. They had to make the sounds, physically make the sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. So it's amazing what influence you have, that you probably weren't even aware of through through these things and through the records you had.
I'm glad you made use of it.
Yeah. And there's some bits and bobs. And all I can hope is that that similar intention feeds down to my own kids. Somehow
that'll leak through.
Because you can't make them be creative. You can't make them. Well, I suppose people do make people become musicians, but there has to be something in themselves that
makes them want to do it in the first place.
Exactly, that has to be there.
But then they don't have to do it, do they? When we started, we had to physically make your own noise. But now you just sort of press a button and you've got whatever noise you want. So you don't have to.
No, that's true.
But you then get to the stage where you compose the music from what's available, don't you?
Yeah.
Like you do. Various noises that can be created on the synth, and it's just endless.
But interestingly, just as an aside, we had 3 boys, and only one actually picked up on the music side of things.
Yeah.
And did we ever send him off for piano lessons? I was trying, because there was this piano lesson idea.
Yeah.
So there must have been something that triggered it off in you.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking about you and your family. It may not be the one that you think most likely. You know what I mean? But I don't know how you encourage that.
I know, and in some ways you can't engineer it.
No.
It kind of has to happen by itself. Although, I mean, we can do things like provide the access to the gear is part of the thing. So having a piano like I've got over there, having guitars and bits and pieces around gives them an opportunity to hopefully to play, and they all fiddle with the piano at various times. I mean, it's Arthur that's really embraced it, I think.
Oh, good.
But I think Tim did brass at school.
He did. He was in the band, of course, wasn't he? For a while.
So he had that, which I followed doggedly in his footsteps. Jamie played a bit of bass at one time. I've still got his bass guitar. Which is now 40 years old.
Come on. Good gracious.
So,
and because we did have back then, and that's what I always think when we look at those videos, the best time to express that sort of thing, because Dad was playing music in church, therefore he had all the opportunities to get you playing or anybody else playing.
Yeah.
And all these people came in to Pickenham at that time, and we, you know, it was, well, we look back on it now, we are thankful really that we were involved at that particular time, at that particular place, which gave us all an opportunity to do more things, if you like. And
I mean, it was exciting, and you know, there was a certain amount of look at us, kind of pride in it, you know, that we were able to do these things and wanted to. And that, I mean, that certainly, I mean, I'm always returning to it in how fortunate we were to have the opportunities we had to do stuff in that space. And we thought that was completely normal.
Yes, we did.
And I have certainly learned since being an adult in different churches that it's not normal, that they are highly protective of the music and the worship group and who they let in, who they don't, which is a shame, you know, a great shame. I mean, I think at my church now we're just starting to see the people who run the worship letting the kids have a go. And how nice that might be. You know, and that's brilliant. I'm trying to encourage that through, because it's only through playing together that you learn anything. I think trying to be at home doing it all by yourself is really hard, and that's why piano lessons didn't really work for me. So I was trying to play on two hands things like TV themes. Who do you think you were kidding, Mr. Hitler? And it was hard, and you're playing it 50 times to try to get it right, and it gets boring. And it's like, But when you actually, somebody sits down next to you and you play together, you're now trying to find the melody, make sure you get that bit right. I'm not having to play it all. I can just play that little bit, and I can get better at that. And that's it revolutionises it. And then when you're stuck in front of an audience, you've then got another level of fear and reason to get it right. You know, so all of that sort of snowballs together in that environment to make you. Turn you into a bit of a musician, I suppose.
The one we were playing on there, that's some sort of a hymn. I've never come across it since. I don't know where it is.
It's sort of I think it was for some kind of Christmas concert, because I'm using a very Christmassy sound, if I remember. I mean, I haven't seen this for a very, very long time, but I think it was a Christmas number. But for reasons I don't recall. Super. Well, that's illuminating. Thank you very much for that, and I'll release you from the horror.
I got quite into it.
So there you go. I mean, it's really interesting how what I thought was going to be me exploring what my first synthesizer was actually turned into the realization about what it was that my parents did for me. The encouragement that they gave me, all the opportunities that they've afforded me when I was a kid that I was largely oblivious of. And my dad in particular, you know, his love of music and interest in music, and his desire to get me involved. And, you know, ever since, we've always had this musical connection, even when we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things over the years. But music is something which we could always come back to, something that we could share in, something that we play together so many times over the years and continue to do so. And that's amazing. And it's been a real joy going back through this. It's been lovely speaking to them about it, to my mum and dad, and seeing their perspective and their poor old adult memories, trying to cope with what it was that was all about. Just fascinating. My dad, he's 80 now this year, which is extraordinary, and he's still playing, and he's still playing the organ down at the church, and we play together at least once a year at the Christingle, if not more often than that. And it's great, and I really, really appreciate it. So thank you so much for introducing me to musical expression, electronic music, synthesizers, and allowing me and emboldening me with this desire to go out there and do stuff. We had such opportunities. It's It's just amazing when I think back on it. So there, I hope that was useful. In the meantime, go and make some tunes.